What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here, and this is going to be a new album review, and today I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from Matt Pike with this debut solo album of Pike vs. the Automaton. Now this is the brand new project with his backing band, and for those who know Matt Pike, he's been a very prolific and an active metal guitarist who's been one of my favourites. Very well known for being in two separate bands who are High on Fire being his main band, and the very iconic and important one at that in the stoner doom metal genre of Sleep. So I was pretty anticipated to talk about this album with you guys. I was really interested to hear this album, and with what I did hear and receive my eardrums to discover this new direction for Matt Pike for the first time, I'll have to say that Pike vs. the Automaton is a very solid project, and if Matt Pike is going to move forward into this newer direction with the musicians he's worked with for this album in the future, then I am all down, because I always think that Matt Pike as a guitar player is very distinctive, awesome guitar player, all on his own way of writing metal music with his own styles. The first track on the album is Abusive. The distorted guitars are cranked with the involvement on a lot of double bass pedaling action, and the control was all heavy and destructive. Multiple structure changes while Matt's voice was all howling onto his range throughout the entire way through of this album. The drums are crashing and making such a collision of bashful hittings, and it's bringing in a lot of energy, and I really enjoyed this track. It is a wild, fun and big ride of a composition. To the second track on the album of Throat Cobra, drums begin the beat and a few fuzzed guitar noises. The faster tempo moves in the similar attachment to the structure of the opening song, but I think that while it does have a decent set of riffs and the increase of melody and the shouts and tone of Matt's vocals, in this sort of heavy metal-ish type of flavour at the same time as the instrumentation progresses, the structure was personally decent for me, but it's not as massive, not all perfect, but it did make a psychedelic type of style, and it has some really good soloing goodness, as I think that this was an approachable direction of a piece of music. The next track on the album, being one of my favourites on this album, Trapped in a Mid-Cave. This is a stunning tone on the guitars on the opening riff that's so sludgy, and it marks a return back with the music in an admirable way, because I think being one of the longest tracks on the record, it's making a pace that is pretty much more rhythmic and as comfortable. I do mind the repetition, as this main delivery was really consistent, and the drums and the bass mark their own ability of distinction. I like the track quite a lot, as I find it more memorable the more I thought about the track. And even onto the bridge section, I did think, while it's being a very noisy type of sound, it was a big, attaching, yet menacing type of approach into this instrumentation. And then onto the, I would say, the very weak generic filler piece onto the next track on the album, which is basically a slow fade in onto the continuation of the last track. But I just really don't understand why this was added in as a separate track to finalize Trapped in a Mid-Cave, because Trapped in a Mid-Cave was one of my favorites on the album, as I've already addressed. But this separate track to finalize Trapped in a Mid-Cave was just, to me, a really weak way. The next track on the album of Land, this is mainly the acoustic number on the record. I guess it's on a slower balladry-ish type of style, involving some harmonies, simple hits, taking a change of pace in music. I do appreciate the sound of this type of music. This does credit Brent Hinds from Mastodon, as he puts in his own ways of soloing with his own exploration across the guitar fretboard. But musically is on a pretty good arrangement. Not one of the other stronger tracks, but I think this pace and the delivery of what this sound is, I think this is very approachable. Personally, maybe my favourite song on this album is Alien Slut Mum. Awesome, grunty, yet disgusting chaos and more versatility on the drums because they sound violent onto the beats, and the loudness was all destructive by nature on this track. The quicker speed and maddening, adventurous ways were just all at once. I think this is one of the best parts on this album because of the musicianship, as that there was so much going on all around, but I really do think this is maybe the potential highlight on this record. The next track of Apollyon, this opens things on, I guess, a quick tremolo type of effect onto the opening notes, and then the difference onto the sound of the band's arrangement on the stop-start sections. While there are some aggression that's continuing on, this, some points at times, does make things pretty trippy on that psychedelic type of flavors. And I find that the sound of the song, at some points when you hear the cleaner guitar notes as you listen to the track, does make me think on a bit of Dope Smoker because of that exact alike type of tone. But I really do think that it is still continuing that brooding and heavy mark of intensity. The next track on the record is the shortest track on the album, of Acid Test Zone. This is absolutely mad onto the speed and energetic direction. It's so uncompromising. Tons of cranked, gained guitars and bass. The screams were just anger-inducing. And while it is such a violent move of a composition, this is just all right as really aggressive because it boosts in so much kick and punches. And then onto the second to last track on the record, of Latin American Geological Formation, like on a dark ascension, and it's pretty doomy. Although the weakest part about this song, unfortunately, the drums on their tone was really weak, and there are some moments on this album where the production was done and mixed very differently than having the entire album be done in the exact formula of production. But I find that the instrumentation was at a decent pace, but personally for me, this is the weakest track on the album in terms of the variety and the, I would say, the experimentalism of where Pike and company did try to achieve something. I really do think that tracks like Alien Slut Mum and Trapped in a Mid-Cave were the better approaches, and of course with Abusive. But in terms of originality, this is one of those songs that I could personally do not think as one of the best ones. And then on to the longest track and final song on the album, of Leaving the Wars of Woe. A phaser effect to dive in with the guitars, and then the band switches things into a sludgy stoner style. And I think that the riff over time on the song was really addictive, and I think the strong, grunty chords and chugging riffs were admirable because of what Matt Pike is all about. The band was on full force, and then over time the song becomes really loose and bringing in a jammy, dare I say it again, the trippy psychedelic type of sound, but it drives along with the music very consistently. But I think that the overall worthwhile march of approval into what Matt Pike wanted to make on this album, for me, I am more of the fan onto his band of High on Fire, and especially onto the sound of Sleep. But I think that this is a very solid record. Let me know what you think of this record, of Pike versus the Automaton, in the comments down below. I'm going to give this album a 7.5 out of 10. There are some more positives all the way through this review here, besides some weaknesses, and I find that I would recommend this record, not one of my favourite albums of 22 at the moment or ever, but if you love this type of metal and for yourself to be anticipated to discover this album, please let me know if you have heard of this album. Do you think this is a strong record? Do you think this is one of the best projects that Pike has done with his entire career? Or you still stick to High on Fire and Sleep, but still respect this album for what it is? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.